All right, for those of you just joining us, welcome. For those of you that were already with us, welcome again. We appreciate you being with us today. We're going to be talking about those darn DPAs. There's a little bit of snark, but I assure you it is on purpose. It's a fun webinar. We're going to be diving into five of the most common misperceptions, objections, and obstacles that we hear about here at Down Payment Resource when it comes to transactions involving down payment assistance. Now, the purpose of this webinar is to help everyone feel more confident and comfortable when working with these programs. So, as I mentioned, we're going to have some fun. Maybe the content might ruffle some feathers, but let's get started. Yeah. My name's Will Medina, part of our DPR team. We also have with us today Lori Johnson, our customer success specialist, Tracy Hacker, our customer success manager, Melinda Harris, our director of marketing and communication, and Lisa Rhodes, one of our awesome DPA program specialists. They will be answering questions in the background. So I would like to ask that you use the Zoom Q&A feature to engage with them as we move forward through this webinar. We just find that it's a lot easier to track your questions there, but we are still monitoring the chat. And just as a quick note, a copy of today's recording of the webinar will be shared with everyone. All right. So we're going to be kicking things off with a brief overview of the current state of down payment assistance programs. From there, we'll dive into the perceptions and misperceptions surrounding DPAs, specifically looking to tackle the five most common obstacles and objections that we hear when it comes to working with these programs. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to address those challenges head on by sharing insights and feedback from your industry peers. We're talking about real estate agents and loan officers from across the country who are proficient in down payment assistance. They've kindly helped us identify some best practices to cut through the noise and help clarify timelines, which that latter part I know is extremely important. Now, we'll also share some practical tools that you can combine with those best practices to enhance your approach when working with down payment assistance programs. So first, a little bio about us. We are a national database and matching engine of all of the more than 2,600 home buyer assistance programs across the country. Our team has decades of experience in residential mortgage finance and real estate. And we've also created tools for mortgage lenders, real estate agents, and multiple listing services that help enhance the experience and workflow when working with down payment assistance programs. Ultimately, we always like to say that it is our goal to help you bridge the gap and connect home buyers with the down payment assistance they need. So I'd like to begin with a quick overview. We publish a quarterly report called the Homeownership Program Index Report, where we take stock of what's available across the country and also look at developing trends. So, based off of our Q1 2026 report, this is what we found. Of all the home buyer programs available, 74% are some form of down payment or closing cost assistance. Now, within that, 80% offer deferred payments, meaning no monthly payment on the DPA loan for a set period of time. 53% are forgivable, either partially or fully, essentially turning into a grant over time. And 51% are both deferred and forgivable. Now, on top of that, there are other DPAs that function as true grants at closing or as loans with monthly payments after closing. Just as a quick note, for a deeper dive into all things down payment assistance, we highly suggest that you attend one of our DPA 101 webinars. There, we explore these programs in greater detail, including other options like affordable first mortgages, tax credits, and mortgage credit certificates. The webinar helps you understand how these programs are similar, how they differ, and what it takes to qualify for them. So, one question we hear a lot is who offers these homebuyer assistance programs? Well, it's important to note that every state has a housing finance agency. There are local housing finance agencies in certain markets across the country as well. You've got city and county governments. Often they have community or economic development departments or housing authorities. Many employers, like municipal governments, hospitals, and universities, may also offer their employees some form of down payment assistance. You've got local housing authorities and CDFIs, excuse me, which help increase local DPA options. And there's also the Federal Home Loan Bank Network, which operates across the country through their member banks. Now, there's a number of nonprofits like NeighborWorks and Neighborhood Housing Services and others that operate in markets across the country with varying programs. You also have community action agencies, community land trusts, and so many other organizations out there that are all trying to open new doors to homeownership and help promote housing growth and responsibility in their market, which is your market. And they all have funded and available down payment assistance programs. So these programs are available everywhere. We're talking high cost markets, low cost markets, urban, rural. Every state, as I mentioned, has a housing finance agency whose programs are available statewide, and not to mention all the local programs available in each market. Now, income and price limits are market adjusted based on median incomes and median prices in that market. So you see higher limits in higher cost markets. Now, in the graph here, you can see the states with the greatest number of programs, right, ranked 1 through 10. But there is literally no county in the country where some kind of help isn't available. So now let's get into some of the trends that we're seeing with down payment assistance programs, and then we'll get into rethinking our perceptions. So we continue to see that demand for these programs is through the roof. Providers are increasing assistance amounts, income limits, and purchase price limits to continue to help more buyers in today's ever evolving market. DPA providers are also expanding eligible uses of their funds as well as the eligible inventory options. We continue to see new state and local programs launch in markets across the country, and 77% of all DPAs are funded and available. Again, there's so much more attention on affordability and down payment assistance now than perhaps in many of the previous years. And it is important to note again that these programs are available and are not going away. So, in a previous slide, I mentioned the homeownership program index report. Here, I've got a quick breakdown of that Q1 2026 report. And again, for those not familiar, the report is published quarterly. It offers a snapshot of trends. Now, over the past few years, we've observed a net increase in the number of programs hitting markets across the country. Some other things that we've observed also is that 38% of programs have no first-time homebuyer requirement. Almost 40% allow the purchase of a manufactured home. 35% allow multifamily residential properties. Of course, the caveat being that one of those units must be owner occupied. 25% of programs are statewide, right? We're thinking state housing finance agencies here. Most of the rest would be considered local, your municipalities, maybe some of your nonprofits. And about 206 programs offer extra incentives for, say, military service or specific professions. Okay, so now let's talk about down payment assistance. All right. These are some of the common things that we hear, especially from the lender perspective. But we will be considering lenders and real estate agents together as we move forward. So, one, we hear that down payment assistance programs add costs, that there's no margin, thus making them unprofitable to originate. That DPAs add a layer of post closing complexity and some potential risk. Looking at it from the lender perspective, we're talking getting loans off of the books, sold, off to a servicer, right? DPA training, right? Could it be hard to implement? There are some adoption questions. Are loan officers actually going to originate these loans? Will closing timelines be delayed because we're using a DPA in the transaction? And lastly, will the program run out of money after I start the loan application? So in the end, what we are essentially hearing from many in real estate and finance is that we love the concept of down payment assistance, but we struggle with the logistics and the economics of these programs. And honestly, that's why we are here today, to help combat some of these perceptions. We're here to essentially rethink our approach to and understanding of these programs. And in fact, we're going to give you millions of reasons to rethink down payment assistance programs. But first, let us outline the five most common objections or misperceptions that we hear about down payment assistance programs. Okay. We're going to acknowledge and discuss what the issue is, whether real or perceived, and then talk through solutions to these issues and or even debunk some of them as we go. So first up is inventory. We know that inventory remains tight in many markets, but there are creative things that can be done to help uncover additional inventory opportunities. There's confusion about down payment requirements. Too many aspiring home buyers continue to believe that they need 20% down and are unaware of low down payment mortgage options, right? Some first mortgages or even down payment assistance programs, thus often giving up on the idea of homeownership. We'll make sure to tackle that issue. Now, we also know that over the past few years, many sellers, or more likely the listing agents representing them, have been apprehensive about accepting contract offers from buyers using DPA, right? There's a financing question. So we're going to talk through that issue, how to address it, and deal with that kind of misguided apprehension. Another concern that's been around for many years also is a misperception that all DPAs inherently extend, prolong, or delay the purchase transaction. So we'll make sure to talk through that, how that's not often the case, and how those misperceptions arise. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, one of the biggest problems out there is the lack of productive and fruitful agent loan officer partnerships. We'll be discussing some of the challenges we hear from real estate agents and how loan officers can actually step in and help. So, our approach, as mentioned, will be to present the issue, acknowledge it, understand it, then present the solutions. And as mentioned earlier, these solutions are what we've heard from your peers, real estate agents and loan officers across the country who've weighed in and given us some feedback. This stuff isn't just made up for you, it's curated from all of your peers. So, with that, let's go ahead and dive into the inventory issue first. So, what's the inventory story? Well, kind of broad, right? Supply varies. In some markets, supply is above pre pandemic levels, while it may remain below in others. Interest rates remain a barrier. We know this can suppress demand despite enormous interest in homeownership. Um, Prices are softening or tightening depending on the market. And of course, you have some demand factors here. Many buyers are still competing for the same properties. It's also important to mention the sideline buyer that is weighing their options based on the current rate environment. People who purchased in the past few years waiting to downsize or upsize. And of course, those sellers pulling their listings off of the market. Where is the equilibrium, right? So we obviously have to figure out what can we do to address this inventory issue. So overall, we can consider alternatives to the open market. What do I mean by that? Let's think agency owned or municipal owned properties and land trusts that can be combined with down payment assistance programs. This can be an affordable option for first time homebuyers. Many local housing agencies or municipalities around the country purchase and repair blighted homes only to bring them back to the market at or below cost, or even develop new properties meant to be affordable. We're also talking homes that need minor repairs that may give buyers the opportunity to compete and to afford a home they can make their own. And to be clear, we are not talking about a gigantic hole in the roof, but those homes that maybe don't get snatched up in the first week or two, right? Those homes that require a little TLC, but can offer a handy or motivated buyer another outlet or inventory. Another option is to get to know agents that list affordable properties, right? Get on their email list to monitor their coming soon offerings. Certainly getting ahead of the competition can help open new inventory options. Let's not forget about manufactured housing, right? That can also be an affordable housing alternative. And of course, baked into all of this is counseling buyers about what the process and competition will look like. We got to make sure they get pre-approved and probably take their home buyer education course much earlier in the process. It also helps to partner with a housing counselor to help incubate and prepare new buyers, right? All of this can help you build a bigger, stronger pipeline over a period of time. Just as a quick anecdote, one agent in Houston says to use what they refer to as calculated patience, meaning narrowing down the buyer's list of must haves for their new home so that you, as a team, are fully prepared to strike on a contract offer when the right property hits the market. So it's, of course, important to be realistic about those must haves and discuss those candidly early on while counseling your buyers. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the confusion around down payment assistance requirements. Excuse me, down payment requirements. According to a study by the Urban Institute in 2018, which continues to resonate today, uh, it was shown that 65% of prospective buyers believe they need at least 15 to 20% down to purchase a home. And then 76% have little to no familiarity with low down payment program options. Okay. Home buyers, of course, aren't familiar with some of the lingo, some of the terms or requirements, like they may have a misunderstanding of debt to income requirements, or maybe how student loans are calculated. So taking all of this into account, the buyer will just probably sideline themselves and give up on the idea of homeownership. And so many buyers, right, continuing to think that they need 20% down just to buy a home, ends up prohibiting them from actually taking that step forward, meeting with someone, an agent, a loan officer, just to have that first conversation. So in summary, our marketing content, right, the industry's content and activities need to better educate aspiring buyers to let them know that home ownership is within reach, but most importantly, how. So not to keep bringing it up, but it's important to combat that 20% myth. We obviously have to aggressively debunk it, especially among first time home buyers. We certainly know that this is not a requirement, and it's important for marketing content to actually educate buyers accordingly on the various first mortgage options that are available to them. Something else that can be done is getting outside of our bubble. We hear from so many realtors that they got into DPA because one buyer came along who needed help, and then that led to a new path in their career or a new tool in their tool set, and overall a heartfelt desire, right, to help. So it's good to align yourself with other agents and lenders that are working in the DPA lane. Something that also helps is telling the stories of how you've helped others with these programs. That's great content for your social media audience. All right. Clearly important to let your future buyers know what you're able to accomplish for yesterday's buyer, for today's buyer. Make use of the educational tools that are out there. You can use our educational information at downpaymentresource.com. There's training classes from your state or local housing finance agencies, even the homebuyer education classes from some of the local organizations as well. Take the time to know, right, and offer the tools that are available to your homebuyers. And of course, part of all this education is just being willing to talk about these programs. And certainly we'll get more into agent loan officer partnerships, but exploring those LO partnerships can help you gain comfort, right, with DPA requirements and perhaps open a new path to helping more buyers. And of course, we understand if this is something that is at the moment not of interest, or perhaps you might say it's not for you, that's okay. I think there's also a place for conduits. So if you know that someone is in need of these programs, right, if you can make these connections, that's also playing a role in helping motivate these first time home buyers. But we certainly ask for you not to give up on these buyers at all. So now let's talk about contract refusal. Whenever a contract comes in, let's say with down payment assistance. So is it true that sellers don't like DPA contract offers? Is this something that you may possibly see in your market? These are some of the questions that we've asked when speaking with peers. We know that one bad experience can sour someone's willingness to work with a DPA program again. Sometimes the seller, or more likely the listing agent representing them, misunderstands the program or may even associate one bad experience with all DPA programs broadly. It's important to remember that sellers need help framing the value of the DPA appropriately, right? Did they get their closing costs covered by the DPA programs? If so, agents help frame up the value to that seller. We also know that sellers, and again, they're agents, want certainty, right? They fear a delay in the process. And so sometimes we'll associate a DPA program with a lack of uncertainty and therefore a potential for delay. So, what can be done? So it's important for real estate agents to leverage the experience and expertise of your loan officer partners. Okay. If they've worked with this program before, they can clearly help set the expectations, even with the seller and their agent. Another thing is to leverage the value that a DPA program adds to the transaction, right? They can be framed as, hey, so I don't need to ask for closing costs from you because I have a DPA in place. So ultimately, you'll net more from this transaction, which truly is a value add. And also provide assurance that the deal will get done and done in a timely manner. That also means you need to know the guidelines and timelines for the program you're using for your client. Again, great to connect with an experienced loan officer. As long as we educate ourselves and our borrowers on what's needed upfront, there is no need to fear delay. We also have to ensure that the consumer is on the same page as you. They should understand what is needed upfront so that they are able to be invested in keeping their home purchase on track. Now, we also keep hearing from realtors around the country, don't disclose more than you have to. Put in the contract what state law requires, but if you don't have to disclose the source of funds for DPA, then it's none of the seller's business. Now, of course, wrapped into this as well is, as we had mentioned, letting them know that the deal will get done, meaning working closely with your LO, with your buyer, with the agency to ensure that all your ducks are in a row. And lastly, remember, ask an LO who does a lot of DPA well, and they will tell you that a DPA buyer who is qualified is still considered a qualified buyer. Okay, so up next, we're going to look at the huge misperception of DPAs extending the transaction. Anything during the loan process can cause a delay. Let's just put that out there, not just the DPA. As an example, perhaps the loan officer didn't fully investigate cash to close up front, or the DPA was added later in the process. Okay. Sometimes when the DPA is added later, people forget about the fact that the home buyer education requirement needs to be completed and sometimes completed much earlier in the process. So, to that point, delays often stem generally from a lack of communication amongst all parties. So, what do we do about this misconception? So, we like to say it's important to build up our DPA IQ, right? Let's understand the programs that we're working with. What is the application process? What are the timelines? What's the home buyer education requirements? Most importantly, if it can be completed early, that class is typically good for a year. Ensure all other services are ordered in a timely manner. Okay. Coordinate with title, seller, lender. Again, it's often not the DPA that causes the problem, but the DPA gets blamed. Okay, imagine a scenario where a buyer gets qualified. They go out, they shop for a home. It takes a while. It will sometimes in this market. Finally signs a contract, but the bank statements have expired. Okay, so now you've got to update the bank statements, but hey, not enough cash to close. Then everyone says, we need a DPA, but the transaction gets delayed. So in that case, clearly the DPA was not the problem. Insufficient cash to close was the problem. The DPA was the solution to that problem and could have been detected or anticipated much earlier. So, agents, it's important to work with loan officers who know the DPA program well and can close on time. Now, the last issue is one of the most important ones in our opinion. And again, all of this curated from your peers, right? So let's start with this. The most common question we get from real estate agents is, how do I find a loan officer that can help with DPA? Specifically, LOs that meet the following three criteria: that they offer DPAs, that they're good at DPA, and that they want your DPA first time home buyer business. Now, the problem with that is many loan officers aren't meeting this demand with the right message that they do offer DPA and that they are good at it. So let's break this down. First, what can real estate agents do? Talk to current loan officers. Maybe chat with a broker. Ask some of your peers for some referrals. Ask program providers actually who their best loan officers are. And just on that note alone, there are programs that, in order for you to qualify, you would need to work with a specific participating lender, or sometimes you can work with any lender, but they'll have a list of lenders that are very familiar with their program. And again, it's important to educate yourself on the available options in your market. Create relationships with partners, loan officers, and brokers that maybe offer DPA programs themselves, right? Talk with your housing finance agency about their relationships with lenders, loan officers, and other agents. They know who is offering their programs. Do some first time homebuyer lunch and learns. Leverage your social media, right? Craft an intake strategy with realtor partners that are working with consumers in need of down payment assistance. And while you're at it, court other agents as well, right? That list and sell affordable and DPA eligible properties. They may have great loan officer connections and possibly also insights into some of that inventory that we mentioned earlier. So now what can LOs do better? Well, you can continue to grow your DPA expertise. You can work with your product development staff to get access to the programs that you and your agent partners, and most importantly, your homebuyer clients need. You can also host teaching and networking activities. Yeah. Maybe some lunch and learns with local agents and brokerages and discuss DPA programs. Get boots on the ground in your community. Maybe get active with a local union, some local employers, some faith-based organizations. Leverage social media as well and be present online, which is where your agents are working, which is where your clients are actively looking for help. And definitely make sure that you have an intake strategy for those new DPA buyers and those new agent partners. And again, broadcast all of this to agents. They need to know that you are the local DPA expert that is ready to step in and help their clients. So to recap, make sure that you explore creative inventory alternatives, that you combat the 20% down myth, that you leverage the value that a DPA program can bring to a transaction, can bring to the buyer and to the seller, that you set buyer expectations and prepare early, and that you create effective and innovative partnerships with other real estate agents and other loan officers. Now, if you remember, we said at the beginning that we'd give you millions of reasons to reconsider any objections and apprehensions you might have about DPA. Well, here you go. Did you know that 33% of all declined loans are salvageable with down payment assistance? That includes loans declined for cash to close, but also for qualifying ratio issues. Now, DPA can't solve credit or employment property issues, but tons of declined loans could be saved if a DPA were identified to help with cash to close or debt to income ratio. And when a DPA is applied to those declined loans, we find an average of about 6% reduction in loan to value. Additionally, we did some research a couple years ago and found that about 68 million single family homes in the US qualify for down payment assistance. This was 87% of all available homes on the market. That is a significant amount of inventory. And lastly, through more research, we found that about 32 million renters are mortgage ready, but many just don't think they qualify. And you might ask, why is that? Well, look no further than the 20% down myth. They think a student loan will kill the deal, or they don't know, right, that they can buy a home with an affordable first mortgage option, maybe putting 3 or 5% down, or perhaps other misperceptions that we know exist. We always like to say that DPA customers become customers for life. So we encourage that you tell their story, because if you help them, they will refer their family members and their friends. In closing, we ask that you feel free to reach out to us with any questions. We are here to help you and your clients find the assistance they need. We can be reached at info@downpaymentresource.com. Now, we will be sticking around to answer a few questions, but I did want to open it up to the team if there's any final thoughts or quick notes you'd like to add.
Well, this is Tracy. You did a great job, by the way. I did want to chime in real quick. Two things. One, I want to let everybody know we are recording this session. You will get a copy of the recording. It's going to come to you by email, and it does take sometimes a couple of days for that to fully process. So either by end of day, maybe tomorrow or Monday, you should likely have that in your inbox. One question that came up that I want to make sure that we point out is that we had somebody reach out that is an agent who is wanting to know about what those best next steps are to help a home buyer that's looking to use DPA. And in that conversation, I had asked if they were part of an MLS that we are partnered with. If you are with an MLS that we partner with, you actually have some additional tools from us for free as part of your partnership. And all you have to do is log into your MLS, look for down payment resource. It's generally under products or external links once you log in. And if you do that, you've got a whole bunch of really cool tools for free through that partnership through them. You do have lots of resources on our website as well that are free. So you can go to downpaymentresource.com. We have an eligibility search there. Um, you have educational pages so that you can log in and get to any of our future webinars and join us for those. We got questions about that as well. So you can do a lot of that on our website. But if you're a part of an MLS that we are partnered with, definitely make use of those free tools that are custom for you in there. That's all that I wanted to make sure to point out. Anybody else can chime in if you guys have anything else.
Thank you, Tracy. So nothing in the Q&A, but I'm seeing a few things here in the webinar chat. One of them being a very good question: where do we find the actual knowledge of DPA? So I'll go ahead and reference, our DPA 101 webinar again, which will be held next quarter. However, you can rewatch the one that we just did on our website, downpaymentresource.com, I believe, under the education tab. And I think it's also a good thing for maybe if this piqued your interest, quick experiment, find a local DPA program in your area, and then start to kind of learn a little bit more about the program, connect with the provider. That's another great option to actually, get boots on the ground. But I will say connect with us at our next webinar. That one goes a little bit more in depth into the actual products. Um, Let me see here.
Will,
Are
I'm
there
going to
real?
point out a question that's in chat that I think is a perfect one for you
Yeah.
to answer with what you do in your role here.
What's up?
Benjamin asked, oh, I'm sorry, Beneman, how much will interest rate increase for every $1,000 given by DPA? Now, I know that there are variances to that, but I figure you'd be
Yeah.
the best one to answer that live.
Well, I will also defer to anyone else on the team that may have any thoughts. In terms of loan pricing, I'm not aware that the DPA should increase the interest rate by any given amount. But one thing I will say is many providers, whenever you're pairing a DPA program with a broker or loan officer's first mortgage, they are going to be reviewing that sheet to see if the fees meet their requirements, to make sure that there is no price gouging, for lack of a better phrase, kind of going on. But I don't know if anybody else on the team who may have some experience with that would want to lend some other details to that, but I'm not aware of any increase specifically for any thousand given by DPA. How often are the DPA classes to certify our clients? Also, if getting certified in the same state but a different city, does that matter? Are you referring to the homebuyer education? Um, yes. Well, sometimes whenever they complete home buyer education, depending on the home buyer education provider, that's usually good for 1 or 2 years. And in terms of it being state specific, some programs require you to work with a local HUD housing counselor. Sometimes you can use, I believe it's Freddie Mac, Credit Smart, eHome America. I presume those are all national. So it wouldn't necessarily matter where you take it, just that you complete it early on in the process. I'm going to pivot to Q&A. This is okay. Where do we find that link that you mentioned for the PR that we can give to our clients? Can I ask somebody on the team for some help with that question?
Hey Will, it's Mel.
Hey, Mel.
Esther, and forgive me, I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to. Can you give us some more context on how maybe we can help with PR or marketing that may have been mentioned? If you're talking specifically about what's available, to our subscriber. Okay, in the MLS, Esther, I see your response. Okay, so. We are happy to help you. You can contact us at the email on the screen for more specific directions with your particular MLS. But in general, you're going to find a link to down payment resource when you're logged into your MLS on your MLS homepage. So click on the link to down payment resource, and that's going to take you to our dashboard. And there you can find all of our tools and resources that you have available through the MLS. So, Esther, hope that helps. But again, feel free to reach out to us at the email address that Will has on the screen, and we're happy to give you more specific instructions.
Thank you, Mel. And a quick shout out to you. I see that Mel has put in the webinar chat a link to the HUD approved um, courses, or you probably look for a certified HUD housing counselor there as well. And also put up the DPA 101 webinar for anyone looking for that deeper dive into all things DPA from May. So that's also in the webinar chat as well. So thank you very much, Mel.
Yeah, no problem at
Um,
all. And I'll just add too, when you receive the follow-up from today's session, we do keep a playlist on YouTube of all of our most recent webinar recordings, and we do include that in the follow-up email. So the follow-up email that everybody gets from this session will have the recording and slides from today's webinar. And it'll also have some additional info, and part of that is a link to our YouTube playlist in case you're interested in watching any of our past webinars.
Thank you, Mel. There's a fantastic question that just came in. Unwarrantable condos are available for DPA. I do not believe so. I know that there's been some recent changes to condo financing and so on. I hate to kind of leave that answer for you there. I'm curious, anyone on the back end have any extra details for that one? Appreciate it, Natalia.
I just Googled it, well, and it
Oh,
says
thank you.
generally they do not
Okay,
allow
perfect.
financing for unwarrantable or non-warrantable condos. So that's, for what it's worth. I don't know if Google is always accurate or not, but
Thank you, Lori.
you bet.
Okay, let me see here. Okay, so yes, the recording will be sent to everyone, and as Tracy pointed out, will be will be sent to you. May not be sent to you today, but it will be sent to you. Um,
Okay, I'm going to chime
mhm.
in real quick. I see a question. This is the number one question that we get is
Yeah.
basically how do we find loan officers that are familiar with DPAs? This
Okay.
is what we get all the time. And this one was specifically to a state. I see, Esther, that you had asked this question, and this is absolutely a great space to ask that. We don't have a list to provide you of all the different loan officers across the country. But we have some resources that we can help guide you to. So, one, definitely reach out to any loan officers you've already worked with before. Even if you did not use a DPA in those transactions, it doesn't mean that they don't do DPAs. It just may mean that it wasn't needed or necessary in that specific loan. So certainly reach back out to anybody you've already worked with, ask them if they work with DPAs, ask them some questions about that. How many DPAs have you used with transactions in the last year? How familiar are you with DPAs? Things like that that can kind of give you a gauge on how familiar they are. Um, if they utilize DPAs, then they can be certainly people that you can refer customers to for some guidance or lean on yourself for some information and guidance. So that's number one step. You can also look at your local HFAs or program providers in general. There's always going to be a list of, well, I shouldn't say always. Many of these program providers require the lender to become an eligible lender to utilize that DPA. And so in that case, when that happens, there's going to be a list of already approved lenders to work with that program. So that's a great place to start as well. Look at the list that's already curated from those program providers, which you can find for those of you that are using our tools through your MLS. When you get some of those lead emails, there will be links to those programs, so you can look at that information there. You can look at information on our website. You can go straight to the program providers' websites and find that information as well. So those are great places to start. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've forgotten. You guys can chime in if I've forgotten another place, but those are really great places to start. You could, also, we have a professional page on our website. It's called Down Payment Insiders on Facebook. If you join that page, that's another really great location to kind of network and find lenders, loan officers, housing counselors, professionals in general in your area that you can lean on. So I would certainly join that page. You can put a post out there and say that you're looking for loan officers to partner with in XYZ area, whatever area you're in. And likely you'll get people commenting on that to try to partner up with you. So those are my tips there for when it comes to that.
Thank you, Tracy. Fantastic tips. I'm seeing a lot of great questions come in, and well, we would love to address all of them. I would say feel free to kind of submit them to our inbox. However, we ask that you please join us for our next webinar as well. And these also are going up on our educational site. So if you wanted a quick recap, perfect place to kind of catch them. But otherwise, we look forward to seeing you all next quarter. Updated data, right? We'll be talking about some of the same things, but also giving you access into some of the more recent trends that we are seeing. So again, a huge thank you to all of our attendees, a huge thank you to our team. It was a pleasure being with you today, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.